Thank you. Cool.
Group of Auckland residents occupying Mount Albert to stop hundreds of trees being cut down so they won't be moved. The standoff between protesters and the Māori authority responsible for the volcanic peak is entering its second week with no resolution in sight. Auckland Council has more.
It's a sight you don't often see, Pakeha occupying Māori land. But almost a week in, these protesters on Mount Albert are doubling down and saying they're here for the long haul.
They're trying to position us as a pack of racist rabble-rousers who are here illegally, and that is so not what we're about.
The Tupuna Maunga Authority was given guardianship of Mount Albert and 13 other Auckland volcanoes 5 years ago, and now want to regenerate them with native trees.
We're planting about 74,000 native plantings over several years. We've already planted about 15,000.
But that's at a cost of 345 trees that have graced the slopes of Mount Albert for years.
What we're concerned about is the process. Why remove all of them at once, right in the middle of nesting season?
The protest has the support of some Māori.
For these people, and I'm one of them, because my house is just down there, have lived here for so long and don't actually know what's going on.
Chris Finlayson was the Treaty Minister when the Maunga was headed back to iwi.
My advice to the authority is get out there, tell people what you're doing and why you're doing it, and don't be seen simply to impose on people.
We're here around the clock in a respectful, peaceful and lawful attempt to stop their felling.
But the authority says despite the protest, the felling will go ahead next month. Auckland Council's One News.
AM show reporter Elizabeth White is at Mount Albert at the gates where the protest has already begun. Lizzie, good to have you on the show this morning. How many people are there, and they're starting to gather, are they?
Yes, so initially protesters weren't meant to start gathering here until 7 o'clock this morning, but it's only just gone 6 and people are already well and truly here and ready to go. And basically this all came about when Auckland Council, a company called Treescape and Maunga Authority came together and made the decision to cull those 345 trees. And they say it's part of a restoration process to replace all unwanted trees, and these include olive trees, gum trees and monkey apple trees with native ones. And they say it's to, reinforce native wildlife and native vegetation, but locals are not happy. They say the trees that are already there are home to several varieties of native birds, including the moorpork, the tui and the kingfisher, and they say by cutting down those trees you're not enhancing native wildlife because you're taking away the homes of those birds and you're taking away the hundreds of insects that live in those trees as well.
And not only that, it'll be an eyesore as well. So you take down all these trees in one foul swoop. The native trees, I can imagine, they will take decades to grow. So it changes the not just the landscape but it changes the look of the place as well. It's going to look bloody ugly.
Yes, so it will change the look of it, and this is a massive concern by the protesters. They say if they had been consulted about this, they would have suggested that it be done in stages. You take a few away, you plant a few native ones, and, the cycle goes on. They say by taking them all away at once, it just completely ruins the landscape, and of course, I think the big concern is it's going to take away the home of those native birds. And I think the most important thing to note is they say they weren't consulted about this by Auckland Council, and they say this is illegal under the Local Government Act.
And what lengths can they go to stop the action today? How do they stop the chainsaws from starting this morning? Is there any sort of action planned, or are you not privy to that, or you just can't tell us because they want it to be secret?
Yes, there is action planned this morning. They're planning to make a blockade to stop any heavy machinery from going in. So we're currently at the base of Mount Albert. We're up Summit Drive, and already there are protesters here behind me. You can see them with signs, and they're all gathering together, and they're planning to stand together and stop any heavy machinery from going in. Whether or not that is going to work, it's unclear. We'll just have to wait and see how that will unfold at 8 o'clock this morning.
And do we know much about this Maunga Authority? Do we know much about who they are and what sort of powers they have? Because they're unelected, aren't they?
They're unelected, but they work with the council, and they haven't given us an interview, but in a statement they said that they want this to be a restoration process. They're getting rid of unwanted trees. They said the trees that are here are apparently pests, and that they want to replace them with native ones to return the mountain to the way it would have been initially.
Good stuff, Lizzie. Always good to have you on the program. Keep in touch with us and let us know what happens during the morning as well. That is, of course, Elizabeth White, our AM show reporter in Mount Albert.
Protesters blocking the entrance to Auckland's Ōwairaka Mount Albert vow to stay there around the clock to prevent about 300 exotic trees being felled around the summit. Helicopters and heavy machinery are set to be used to cut down trees, including eucalyptus and pine, as part of a plan to regenerate natives. The Te Puna Maunga Authority has Auckland Council's permission to fell the exotics and plant thousands of natives on the Maunga. But protesters would rather see the exotic trees removed over time, allowing native saplings to grow.
Local resident David Longland says he'd prefer the trees are removed over a decade rather than in one foul swoop. He's among protesters on a rotating roster to block the entrance this week.
I'm going to be here every morning for as long as it takes, and I'll be up here in the middle of the night if I have to be. So, yeah, I'm here for the long haul.
Honour the Maunga member and Mount Albert resident Anna Radford was at the summit early this morning leading the protest. She supports native plantings on the Maunga but does not want over 300 trees removed at once. Ms Radford says the group will support other communities whose Maunga faced a similar haircut.
We'll definitely be supporting other communities that have got it coming their way. We're hoping to stop this madness. Exotics aren't evil. They have a really crucial role to play in supporting birds and wildlife.
Despite the public consultation, Eden Albert local board member Rachel Langton says she only became aware of plans to fell the exotics all at once 2 weeks ago.
I certainly didn't get the impression it was going to happen so drastically overnight. I thought it was going to be a long-term transitional process, protecting the birds and the trees and the Maunga.
Heavy equipment being used to cut down the trees isn't due to arrive on the Maunga until next week, but protesters say they have no plans to leave and will be there as long as it takes to save them. For Checkpoint, Amy Williams.
He whakapai ana wētahi kai tūtohe mena ka tope a ngā rākau e torurau e whātekau mārima i te maunga o Ōwairaka ko te taiao ke te papa. E hia ana te kaunihera o tā maki makaurau me te mana tūpuna maunga o tā maki makaurau. Kia whakatō ke i ngā rākau take ake. I raro i tētahi hōtaka whakarau o rataiao. Pea D'Angelo Martin, te whānuitanga ake.
Kua tūtira te ope nei ki te aukati i te urunga o ngā mihini tapahi rākau ki te maunga o Ōwairaka. Ko atu i te torurau ngā rākau rāwa hoka topea mai te maunga nei, i runga i te hiahia kia kaha whakarauara mai ngā rākau Māori, ko ia te aronga matua.
You take out 345 trees here and thousands, on the other Maunga. What's going to happen to all the birds, the wildlife and everything that they support?
Ki tā te ope nei, ko ngā hua o nei rākau, kei te whāngai i ngā manu Māori.
I think the tourists are going to be affected more. They don't know about colonisation. They don't know about why the trees are getting cut down. They're not getting told that their homes are going to be gone. It's going to be them who's going to pay it at the end of the day. It's not my house getting cut down.
We're concerned that taking out so many exotic trees is actually going to remove a valuable food and home source for thousands and millions of birds and insects while the native seedlings grow up. We totally support planting Auckland's Maunga and native trees, but the trouble is they're going to take decades to reach maturity.
I tai atu ngā kaitope rākau o Treescape ki Ōwairaka i ngā haura o tēnei ata. He rangi tere huri atu rātou i te kitenga o tēnei hungaporo tehe, kāre mo te nuku, kāre mo te neke.
We also want to stop this madness on Auckland's Maunga, whereby all exotic trees are being clear-felled off all of Auckland's maunga.
Ko te whai o te rōpū nei, ka whakarite i tētahi rautaki rereke, D'Angelo Martin, Te Ao Māori.
Trees, Mount Albert trees. Where do you stand on the trees on Mount Albert? You're the local MP.
I am indeed. And so
great area, isn't it?
A beautiful place. But we have the Maunga Authority who have, completed a piece of work. They've gone and they've asked the community and they've established a plan which they've already started. So they've already planted hundreds of natives, but the crunch point here is the plan to remove some of the exotics at the same time.
Why can't they live side by side?
So, ultimately this is a call for the Maunga Authority. What I'd love is for them to sit down and have a conversation with some of those who are raising concerns.
The thing is...
I don't think there's anything to stop them doing that.
But they haven't done it. I mean, we in this country, we consult, right? We consult, we talk, we consult.
Yep.
Māori demand it under the laws of this country, and as all New Zealanders do, actually.
And from what I've read, there was consultation over this plan. So I think it would be unfair to say that.
The locals argue that no.
And now that we have obviously that level of discontent, I think it would be great if the Maunga Authority could reach out and have a conversation with those who are raising
but they're not
concerns.
unelected, and they seem to have an extraordinary amount of power. And the locals say, well, come and sit in the local hall and tell us.
I'm sure there is a way through, but I'm also not going to undermine the Maunga Authority. They were established in 2014.
What about the locals, your voters?
And to claim that the Maunga Authority doesn't represent people who live or have an interest in the area, I think is a bit unfair.
I haven't said that. I've said that the voters don't feel like they've been heard.
And Duncan, you've just heard me say that it would be great if the authority could sit down and try and find a way through. Right. Because I think ultimately everyone's interest is in making sure that it's a beautiful place, that there is restoration. There is work that needs to be done on that maunga. I think everyone agrees with that. And I'm sure that there is a way through. But I'm also not going to undermine the work of the authority there.
But we also need trees, don't we, when climate change?
Yeah, and this is their plan, over 2,000 natives have already been planted and the community helped to plant them. So some good work's been done.
Okay.